Evening, everybody. Here we are once again. It's been a cracking day today. Absolutely piping in fish houses, but it's nice to see all the fish outside and everything getting a little bit more active and some proper water temperatures on, heading towards them growth temperatures. Fingers crossed, anyway. So yeah, this week, to be honest, we had somebody lined up, just got let down last minute. So yeah, luckily. Chris from Elite really enjoyed that last week. It seemed to go down well with you guys. Has made himself available. He's been out on his fishing boat today, to be fair, and yeah, all I could see is when I just saw him a minute ago is I couldn't stop thinking of Benigoi for some reason, and you'll probably know exactly what I mean when you see him on the screen. To be honest with you. So, yeah, other than that, I've just been having a look through. There's loads of great questions sat in there to answer and work our way through this evening. And, of course, please fire in anything that you've got and you want to ask either myself or Chris. If you want to ask either of us specifically, just pop that in the comments and we'll direct it that way and try and work through as best we can. But, like I said, that was a good chat last week, so fingers crossed we can head it the same way. So without any more hesitation, let's get the Benigoi, Chris in, and we'll have a laugh.
Yeah.
Hello, Chris.
Make the most of it. Hello, everybody. It's
some fierce colour, that, mate, honestly.
You want to see Michael?
I won't be sleeping well tonight if I look like that.
It was a good day. It's a good day. It's worth the pain for a day out.
You catch anything?
No. No, we only went out for a bit of sunbathing. We had a couple of coddling, but all the fish that we catch, we return anyway. So
nice
to have a day off away from Koi and just chill out.
Yeah. Full on job. Certainly this time of year, isn't it? It's a very full on job.
Yeah, definitely. So it keeps us busy.
I see you've got a new pond running at shop. Looking good.
Yeah, we've got a new pond at the shop today. I got one in last week, so it's got 20 of the Shinoda Hiotois in there, which we've had.
Oh yeah, nice.
Fish, unbelievable. Really pleased with them. And then we've got 100 Aoki Chibi Nisai in there as well. So yeah, look forward to sorting through them tomorrow.
Yeah, you're in for a busy weekend, I think. It's actually typically I'd have been flying over one night. You got a bacon and coffee morning on Saturday, but it's my birthday, so we're going out for an all-day boozy session. I think me and the wife.
Yeah. Well, we'll be having another one very soon as well. So interesting enough, we're having the bacon bun day, but Saturdays coincides with the live auction day. So I'm hoping that a few of the guys from the group are going to hang back for the live auction, so we can build on that a little bit. So we have a bit online and in the shop.
Nice. And you're coming along actually tomorrow. That's another thing to mention, actually, folks. Exciting day tomorrow. I'm actually doing the selection of my Dainichi collection from last year. So it's going to be the final part in that video series. All the fish are getting netted. I've got to go through, decide what I'm keeping to grow this year, what's actually going to get released for sale now, get everything sex checked done. We're going to be filming it all throughout the day. Got some dealers coming over as well to just enjoy the spectacle and take in the quality of those fish, which I'm really looking forward to seeing them up close. Quite some Chris, aren't they?
Yeah, very, very special fish, and you need to see them up close to really appreciate the quality of them koi.
Are you still coming over? Are you coming with Trace?
Yeah, we're going to try and get over. I don't know if I'll be allowed to bring me wallet though.
Many of you won't know Tracy. It really keeps Chris in check, so to speak, and. The odd time he comes up to visit Koi Wholesale on his own, he always ends up in trouble, shortly followed by me after that for not keeping him under control. And it was the day he came up and ended up taking one of my Dainichi Benigois back. That was quite an interesting one.
Yeah. There's a couple still in that pond that I've got my eye on. I'm not going to say which ones because Tracy's listening.
I can hear you, you know.
Brilliant.
It's not only obvious to get into trouble, is it? It's it's me as well.
No. That's it. So yeah, some questions then. Let's have a look through. We're going to start off with a few on the list first. I've just been having a look through. Here's one that I thought was quite a handy one. So time of year, what are your thoughts on Bakki showers? So I'm going to let you run with that one first, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, for many years, I didn't like them. I didn't like the look of them, the style of them on the pond side. Since I fitted one, I wouldn't be without one now. So Bakki is actually a brand name, isn't it, Vicky?
That's the bit I think people just need to probably drop out of this, because Bakki shower is the branded term for the Momotaro one.
Yeah.
So it's the Momotaro, even design of the shower, then incorporating the genuine Momotaro Bakki house media. But what we're talking about here, in essence, is just a shower filter. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's important that the way that they're rigged up. So I don't really see the sense of having them after a bio unit or after a Nexus or whatever. I think the showers work by gassing off the ammonia and the nitrite, and hopefully the science part is that you're going to long term reduce the nitrate in the pond. I think every pond should have one. I really do. But I think you also have to think carefully about how you set them up. And also, people say about flow rates with showers. To me, I always think a little's better than nothing. So if you've only got a 5,000 litre an hour pump to put over a shower, then it's better than putting no litres over the shower as well. So
yeah, completely.
For me, definitely.
I think the flow rate thing just ties in, because before the term shower came along, we just had trickle filters. That concept's been around for forever. Trickle filters didn't use crazy high flow rates. No, but it's the concept of what they were. So for me, Bakki showers they're not essential. Let's get that bit right, because typically, I mean, if you buy a manufactured one, they're not the cheapest with time all said and done, and they can add running costs, which is quite a hot topic at the moment, because to get the flow rates, or generally anyway, even a low flow rate, you're pumping ahead, which is a more expensive process. But there are just a massive benefits to having them. You've got different bacteria groups colonizing, because it's a slightly different environment. It's a great way to add a shed load more biological capacity, and if set up right, with the right flow rates, it's the impact I'm seeing they have on oxygen above and beyond everything else. This is one of the best ways to aerate water, without a doubt. Every pond, so I've been testing a lot. I'm doing a lot of work on oxygen at the minute, and without any hesitation, every pond that's running a shower, at the extreme heats I'm having at the minute already, because this time of year it's hitting sort of 24, 25 ambiently now. The saturation is substantially higher across every pond that's got a shower, and that is it's seen in the behaviour of the fish.
Yeah,
I think for me the worry comes getting everyone. If you're looking into these, you'll get led to the extreme side of it. Now, if you probably noticed pictures of my facility, I've got the bulk of my systems actually run on. I won't call these showers. I call them more trickle filters at the flow rates that they run at. But they're homemade 3-tier towers that have got mechanical stage at the top, which is just foam, and then 2 tiers of pumice stone underneath it. And these work absolutely. It's the sole filtration for most of the outdoor stock ponds. And you've seen it for years, Chris, haven't you? They work an absolute treat, and under quite heavy stocking levels as well. But
I think one thing to be wary of is for me, the shower media needs to be used in the shower. It needs to be in that trickle scenario. And then I despair sometimes when I see the pumice stone and the alpha grog and the bacteria media being submerged.
It's not its strength.
Yeah, it's if using shower media, it needs to be used in that shower. But they do work very well.
And that's another thing for me on media. So just coming back into that extremes a bit, again, the actual behind the concept, it doesn't need to be an extremely expensive vessel. Likewise, the media in it. I will one day try Bakki House. At the minute, I'm not convinced enough to open my wallet and invest to see it, because for me, it's the concept behind a shower that is the most important aspect. When you're running them super high flow rates, I'm talking, if we go back to Monotero, I'm talking, you know, some of these being fed by 6-inch pipes, that they're hitting that much flow over them. The degassing, the actual effect of the shower from the degassing is what does a lot of the heavy lifting. The material actually within the filter, bacteria will grow on just about any surface. So it's not too much about what's inside it. And recently, and I've got 2 of the Profi drum showers turning up tomorrow to get on 2 more of the big ponds, and I've just been using the Shigure media, the sort of imitant Bakki House one. There's nothing wrong with it. It's been doing the job, working a treat for me. We'll see over time. You know, some people say it can you know, Bakki House just last forever, but I doubt very much this stuff is going to last a long time.
I think we've had our showers. That's what we stock, and what we use in our showers is the Shigure bacteria home media, and it's a very similar structure. And I haven't witnessed any breakdown in any of that media in all the times that we've been using it. So it seems quite robust to me. And we took a lot of water, like yourself, over that media. Yeah, it's a stable media.
Yeah. I've just got an interesting one here from Paul, actually. What about the saying the chocolate waste making it more available for nasty bacteria and other Dutch YouTube. Yeah, that's interesting. I've actually been playing around. I did that exact test with my oxygen probe, and the saturation in the bottom of the shower was better than in the pond. It was the sweet spot. Even the area just after the return, it was saturating better than other areas of the pond. So I'm not sure what that's all about. One thing in shower design, you've got to consider airflow. That is a genuine thing. Now, what I see is, you know, airflow is not just about an out. You've got to have an in and an out. It's just as simple as that. But if you've got the top covered and only the bottom open, that's not creating in and out airflow. So that's not going to oxygenate as well. And the actual towers, the ones I talk about I use on my ponds, the homemade ones, they will likely consume more oxygen than they'll produce because they're actually closed vessels. So there's not likely to be saturating there because there's no actual airflow to the unit inside. It's just it's a biological filter in there which will be consuming oxygen. So depends on the circumstances. And coming back to what Jos said, obviously facts, yes, it probably is the case there, but I'm just seeing too many other benefits. And this is a super healthy system this is on. It's only adding more to it. So you can look at one element and focus on, but we're talking about adding something to a really healthy pond here, which is never going to create an issue.
Looking at that one for me, I mean, putting the waste over the shower, our shower, the latest one that we fitted, the 4-tier one on pond 10, runs after a CETA sieve. So a lot of the mechanical waste is taken out before the water comes over. Interestingly enough, when we've been testing with the oxygen probe in different areas of the pond and different areas of the filter, you can see a reduction in the Nexus outer chambers because that bacteria is using oxygen to convert your ammonia to nitrite to nitrate. So it does get consumed. Where it comes back in from the shower, I think the breaking of the surface tension is what's allowing the more oxygen to come into the pond.
Yeah, it's just smashing the water down, making the molecules smaller. They're benefit. That's my verdict. They're beneficial, not essential. They're beneficial, but obviously, you know, in the current climate with running costs, it is something you'll have to use. I'm having to use quite hefty pumps that I think I've mentioned before. You know, the one pump running the shower when it's flat out is running for substantially more than the entire system run for prior to that. But I'm seeing the benefits. So from a commercial aspect, it completely makes sense. And I can't wait to get these others running, to be honest with you. One of which is going on the Shinoda Heat Saw is just to, going for maximum on them ones. So, fantastic. Right, I've just actually seen while I've been looking in the comments, one that is quite interesting. So what's the verdict on ozone in a koi pond? And does it have a place like it does in marine tanks? I'm going to start with that one. We know my people keep it simple mantra. it's an absolute no for me on that one, to the point where I've never even bothered to try it. Expensive system to set up. For me, if you're doing all the other things right, there shouldn't be any need for ozone in a pond. And ultimately, you're playing with something there that if you get it wrong, that is something that is going to damage your fish. So I just would want absolutely no part in that in the slightest. So, your views, Chris?
Yeah, I'm the same. Never needed to look as to even know what ozone does in the makeup of the water. I've never needed it, so it's not for me either. It's not something that I've looked at, if I'm honest.
No, it's just layers and layers and layers of complexity that's just not needed. So yeah, absolutely not on that one from me. Take all that money and use it on anything else other than that one, to be honest. So
nice shower and pump.
Hey,
nice shower and pump.
Yeah, there we go. It's going to be far much more beneficial. Right, just bear with me a minute, folks, while I have a look at what else we have got. Right, here's one actually on nitrite. Hannah Pocket Checker Ultra Low Nitrite, which gives a reading of 64. But that's possible. Is it worth worrying about? So I did look at that question last week, but couldn't do the conversion in my head. 64 parts per billion is running at 0.064 milligrams per litre. All I'm going to say on that one is if you run that on a standard liquid test, you're probably going to get a 0 as if there's no nitrite. That is obsessing over something that's always going to be there to some extent. So I'd forget about that entirely. And this, to me, is one of the downsides of having these kind of checkers. It's going to drive you absolutely insane if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And in some cases, Chris, I know you're having fun with yours at the minute. But for something like that, I just think it's way over the top.
Yeah, I mean, for nitrite, we've always tested it in milligrams per litre. Parts per billion, really, it fuzzes my head up a little bit. But looking at that, it's not so much about the figure, but it's like seeing if that figure's increasing or if it's coming down.
That's a good point. Spotting the trend.
Yeah, it wouldn't be on a milligrams per litre.
No, that's it. Like I say, that's going to struggle to read 0.1, which is your first trace. So if you are using these things because you want that level of accuracy, I think it's always worth just having the liquid as just a real visual guide just to what's happening. Yeah.
When we're been checking the copper, it's such a low level anyway. We need the low range to get into that 0.006. So we can do it in parts per million or milligrams per litre. But then because the reading's so low, it's giving you a false reading because it's too high, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think for the metals, it's important because they are the tolerances in them are so low anyway. But that with nitrite, don't get me wrong, it's not far off. But that's just a number that you're never going to get 0.000 on a nitrite test. Well,
I'd be happy with that.
Fishing there, So madness, that one. Fantastic. Here we go. My uncle swears by salt for everything. I'm definitely not a fan of adding salt to a pond. What's your view? So the first one I'd direct you to for another watch is a video on the Koi Wholesale YouTube channel that I actually did on this. But yeah, salt. This is that. I feel like this is the scenario I've heard many a times when I started working in my dad's shop, and we get the typical old method fish keeping where people used to chuck a bit of salt in every now and again, and everything kept absolutely magical. That's never the way I've used salt or ever been taught by anybody how to use salt. It's something that's used for a specific purpose, and for those specific purposes, it's actually incredibly essential. But it needs to be done properly, dosed properly at the correct measurements in order to do anything. If we're just talking about chucking some salt in, sort of hoping for I don't know what, it's never going to happen or ever really do anything. The main reason we're using it is through high stress situations. Is from a dealer side of it, we use them a lot. Chris will know full well the amount of people that will visit, the shop over the weekend when you're catching, bagging, there's loads of stress events. You know, in these, it can just help the fish recover and sort of go through that a little bit. And yeah, the sleeping sickness, you know, importing new koi and at times of high stress, you know, when I've been out with breeders in Japan and you've got new fry and you're moving around and all the rest of it, absolutely essential in helping them recover. But in this instance where I think it's just kind of thrown in willy-nilly, absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
Do you still see that with customers a lot, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 50-50 split. Some people come in and say, "No, I'm never going to add salt to the pond."
Yeah.
What I said to people, never say never to anything. If your fish was dying, you know, then you do anything that you can do to effectively buy yourself some time while you can answer the bigger questions or get to the root cause of what's going on, which salt is good for.
I don't foresee a case where a hobbyist needs to just put that in there for no apparent reason.
No,
that's not. If someone's telling to use salt for that reason, I don't buy into it. But if the time comes and it's needed, where you've had severe parasitic illness and your fish are wiped out at the end of it, we need to get them fish right. Salt is one of the best things to use, but at the correct doses and done in the right way. So
reasons, yeah. We had a guy rock up last week, interestingly enough, who wanted some salt to get rid of blanket weed. So, yeah, it's much easier to use a bit of blanket weed remover and that's it sorted.
Yeah. So no, just generally chucking a bit of salt in, not into that one, but when it's needed, because sometimes it's like recovery from sleeping disease. Very rare we're going to do it without salt. So there we have it with that one. Oh yeah, just while I'm having a browse through, again, I'm just, you know, you guys watching, appreciate if you hit that share button, just so we can, remind people it's Wednesday night and we're talking koi. Let's have a look. We have a 2,000 gallon pond with a 130 litre air pump for a Nexus 320. Is that ample air without using bottom drain air? This will be interesting, Chris. Go on, where would you go?
It's very interesting. I mean, how big's the pond? How deep's the pond? The air pump should be more than sufficient for the Nexus 320, the outer chamber, if not a little bit too fierce. When I'm setting the air in the outer chambers, I like to see a gentle roll of the media. I don't like it boiling too hard.
I love to say I don't like flat spots. Flat spots stress me out.
Yeah, you see, I just like that gentle roll. We try not to have any flat spots, but a flat spot doesn't worry me.
No.
It's as long as there's a nice gentle roll. So, but a 130 litre air pump. The other thing with air pumps is the strength of them and the quality of them is very closely linked.
That's a very, very good point. They're not all equal, and that's why some of the dearer pumps. That's one of the big things to look at is the pumping depths. Yeah. Because you'll get some 50 litre pumps quoted slightly differently, and some can be quoted just at literally pumping straight out the exhaust.
Yeah.
Whereas others are quoted at sort of 2 metre pumping depths and beyond. So
we always set ours up so we've got a valve that goes to the bottom drain, the aerated bottom drain, and then if we close that valve off, if people are viewing the fish in the pond, we shut that valve off. The air, all of it then goes into the outer chamber of the Nexus. That way, you're not putting any back pressure on the pump, and you're gonna
get the most out of it. So I think in regards to the oxygenation level with this one, there's variables as there always is. So like I say, how big is the pond? How heavily stocked is it? You know, what water temperature you're operating at. There's a lot to consider there, but in average, so my 10 of my indoor ponds that are the sort of roughly the 1,200 gallon ones, I don't run any air into the pond itself as they stand. I drive it all through the chamber, because that was a conversation I had with Jasper from Evolution Echo one time, was to do with the efficiency of aeration, because air stones themselves are actually quite an inefficient way of oxygenating water. And it was actually more efficient in a bio chamber with good depth in a fluid bed. They actually create more oxygen in that environment. So sure enough, gave it a shot, And yeah, to be honest with you, they work great. I do use a spray bar on the return, which does add quite a lot of surface disturbance in the pond. They're quite aggressive. It's not just like the surface is completely still, which I definitely wouldn't recommend, to be honest with you. But on that particular system, how I'm driving that, then ponds work really well. And they are no less saturated from a percentage wise than the bigger ponds that have air running in there as well. So I think that probably says a lot about the efficiency of the air pumps, to be honest.
I think it's probably an important point to make that the amount of saturation in the water is linked to temperature. So warmer water can physically not hold as much air as colder water. So
no, that's
this time of year you want as much aeration as possible, certainly on the nights. And if you've got plants in the pond, because the plant will reverse that cycle on the night time and actually take oxygen from the water as well. So
yeah, all important things for people to consider there. So I hope that answers that one. I seem to think 2,000 gallon pond, in my opinion, probably knowing that's not stocked anywhere near like my ponds, that will run absolutely fine. But just consider your returns and giving some disturbance to the surface of the water. Brilliant. Right, next one. This will be quite a good one, Chris, because I know we've both got a bit to add to this. Is it good to use clay? I'm going to let you run first, because I know not only clay, you're quite a big advocate of another product as well, aren't you? Clay-based.
Yes. The answer to that one's yes. And working with Yoss and speaking with Yoss, there's benefits to clay that I don't think we've really understood over the years, which is it's a way of introducing some beneficial bacteria to the water and it cleaning some of the more negative ones out. Two types of clay that we use. We use a product called Envirex, which is, you don't need much of it. It's a fantastic product. It's a biological pond cleaner, and it really does put a very good sparkle on the water. We only use in a 1,000 gallon pond probably 20 grams every 4 days. Keeps the water absolutely fine. Doesn't cloud the water, so you lose sight of the fish for a couple of days. The other one that we use is a miso clay. We tend to use that once a month, or if we've had to use PP in the pond, then we quite often use a miso clay just to like blanket the pond in clay and get all that nasty stuffs out and into the filter. It's one, when you're using the Envirex, it's one that you don't realise that you've been using it until you stop using it, and then you notice the difference. It's a subtle difference, but a very positive one. The other clay that we're using, and we're trying to get it into the fish gut at the minute, is because the fish gut health is very important, is detox, which is it's against a Nottinghamshire fish health product, and it removes toxins from the water. It's very good for removing styrene from the water. And what they've been doing, the guys on the WhatsApp group, they've been damping the pellets down a little bit, adding some detox clay, letting the pellets squeeze that in and dry out again, and feeding it to the fish. Everybody who's been engaged in that feeding routine and using the clay, coming out of winter this year, the results are magnificent. Very few problems, really, really healthy fish. And it was on the feed a long time ago. So, good products.
Good. Yeah, I'm again Back to Plus or Mizu. I got that when that came into market last year because I'm a big Back to Plus product fan in general. So I was keen to give that a shot and been very impressed with it. Side effect I've noted in a couple of batches of fish was it seemed to improve sumi a little bit, which could be to do what makeup is in the clay, to be honest. And I mean, I like it again this time of year when the sun's strong, just to give. I probably use that once every 2 weeks or so, and it just gives that bit of turbidity in the water for a little period, which is just protecting that skin from the UV, so they're not just full on in it all the time. But I see no issues in using them, and a good additive to have in there for sure. That I can't really see any downsides to using it. Interestingly as well, I also, because I've seen people mucking around drum filters, I've had no issues with drum filters running this, stripping it out, any of that kind of business when I've been using it. I just add it straight to the pond, and let it naturally run its course from there. I don't turn the drum off or anything like that. I just let it do what it's doing, and it works wonders. So plenty of them out there, but they're not all the same. And I think you're just in there, both of us, you know, the back to plus one. It's the one I'd be choosing.
Yeah, I think with the, I think for me, I want the drum to strip it out. I want the clay in. I want it to do its job, you know, and then I want it out after 24 hours. So out, get it cleared. So
yeah, now even I've had them going on for at least with the drums I've got after a dose, it's at least over 48 hours before clarity's back to where it was. So it's a good period, and it's nice to see it sort of coats the pond walls as well, which I like to see. It's I just think a great thing to be chucking in there.
I think you certainly see a benefit to the skin quality as well, don't you? It really does help the skin.
Yeah, it gets that shine there. It definitely does. So right, one, here we go. Do you find it worth feeding Saki growth Sandlar or the Pond 23C? I asked because I was told they can't really make use of additional protein in Sandlar. Right, if you're after growing your fish, because I've seen people who use wheat germ as a growth food over thing, trying to keep the shiroji growing. You know, this stuff is not a growth food. Growth, you need very specific criteria in a food, and while you are trying to grow your fish and you're at that temperature, you want to be using a growth food because they're formulated to do it. You know, we're not talking just about protein. When I'm looking at growth foods, I'm looking at fat more than anything. But the ultimate is the mix and the balance between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And this is a mix that not all foods get right, and something that Saki did really conquer. I remember reading a paper on it that they wrote on how hard they worked on this, and how it is part of the success behind how it gets the extreme growth that it does without creating. They actually use the term in the paper, making the fish fat, but by them saying fat, they mean creating volume, good volume. When I say fat, I mean creating the big heavy guts underneath that we don't want to see. So absolutely, if you're at that temperature and you're wanting to grow fish, you want to use growth food, and that's not just because of protein. Most protein levels across are relatively similar, to be honest with you. It's more because of the fats, and then the balance of all three groups, absolutely essential. So I don't know who's told you that. There might be some fact behind it, but protein is not the focus here. You know, as with, you could focus on any just particular thing in a food. It's about the combination of it all and what it does. But that temperature, the issue is you've got well at that temperature, if you don't get enough fat into them as well while you're burning away at 23, 24 degrees, you're not going to get volume, and you're going to actually do the opposite. You're going to start stripping it off of them. So this is something I find as a balance. It's all good and well raising the temperatures up, whether you feed towsai, nisai, sanzai, whatever you're doing. The moment you've got them warm waters, you've got to get the feeding right in order to get the growth and certainly get the volume. And that's where people will go wrong. You won't get the volume if you're not getting the right food in the correct amount into them. You'll just stretch them out, and they'll grow in length but lose body mass. So this is where, to be honest with you, when you see the results that I'm getting and you see that big body that the packing and the breeders are packing, that's a combination of getting the right food and really getting the right feeding levels, which can then ultimately really test a system and your fish keeping skills at times. So yeah, that's my 10 pence worth on that one.
Yeah,
one of them old wives' tales that go around again.
Yeah, for me, I keep glancing outside. I'm just looking at our collection. I haven't seen them all day. We don't feed them high growth. We've got fish up 35 plus years old in that pond. You know, most of them are older than Sandside. We don't feed high growth in there. We just go with either the Takazumi Gold or Takazumi Vital.
Yeah. You're not looking to hammer them though, Chris, are you?
No, that's it. They're just nice and steady, and you know, we're quite happy with them and the development that they've got. So
yeah. And to be fair, it's all relative with water temperatures. You know, you're sort of taking the temperatures as they come, so to speak. Like a lot of hobbyists are all unheated, so it's not one relative. But the minute you choose to have them temperatures up and stable, and you're looking to go for it, you'll get that right food, and you're just not going to get the results that you want to get from it, to be honest. So right, just where there's definitely one in here. I've just seen, Chris, that you'll be more use than me, to be honest with you.
Not about sunbathing, is it?
I'm not going to take your advice on that one. Just bear with it. Oh, here it is. Just one blanket retreatments. Again, I'm not that up on. I'm a bit stuck in my way. I'm not that up on really what's out there in the market. I've used, just to give my bit, I've used Colombo Algicin for years. Works well with me. With very well, I've seen no side effects from using it. Actually, that's why I stick with it, and it does the job for me. But other than that, I've no other reason to change because it works. But yeah, blanket weeds. To be fair, with the stocking level of stuff I have, fish do a great job of maintaining blanket weed in my system. It's not a major problem for me, so that's why I'm going to chuck this one over to Chris, because he'll have a broader understanding of what's on market, what's working for people out there. To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we naturally we stock a big range of them. Our biggest seller by far is Resolve.
Yeah.
It's a natural product, can be used safely with plant sturgeons. It's not a blanket weed killer. It removes phosphate, so it lowers the phosphate, actually starves the blanket weed. So you always need to use first dose, second dose 10 days later. And it kind because it starves, it gets rid of it gently. It doesn't just drop everything off all in one go. If I could only choose one blanket weed treatment for the shop, that would be the one.
Yeah, so I used to hate that with some of the ones that were, my God, my time. I'm not sure if it's even still about anymore. Clover leaf blanket answer. Time I was in a shop. I mean, blanket weed seemed to be a huge problem back then. Treatments weren't effective. This stuff came along, and it was an absolute blanket weed. It was sassy, to be fair. But then you start obviously learning some of the aftermaths, and the way at which that goes about it, the speed at which it destroys it and overwhelms the system, just kind of changes the whole balance. It's not. Not one I would choose to be using personally.
I think in all the years that we've been selling the blanket weed stuff, we've only had one or two customers that don't like the Resolve, and it hasn't worked for them. But my understanding of blanket weed was always, before this came along, this product, was that there's different strains of blanket weed. So you might, if one product might work one time, then you might have to change it for another product. If there's a resistance, or if indeed it doesn't get rid of it. So
actually, I'll have to. Steve will probably tell us more at some point, or we'll leave it in the description or whatever. We did a Jasper from Evolution Aqua wrote a superb, really technical piece on blanket weed that was in one of the mags. I'm not quite sure which. So that's well worth a read in Koi Talk. And I know he's going to say it. Paul over in Italy has asked a question about blanket weed. To be honest with you, I'd recommend reading that as soon as you can get the magazine. And trust me, we're getting closer. We had a mare of a problem going on, getting the postage system behind the scenes to all talk to each other and work properly. But yeah, that piece was superb on that, shed a lot of light on what's going on with blanket weed. So as soon as we can, I'll let you know what issue that was. If you've not got it, I'd recommend getting it and having a read. So here's an interesting one, Chris. A lot of pond closures with electric prices going through the roof. If a saving was needed to be made, where would the best place to make it? Now, I'm just going to start on this one because I've been having this chat again today. I think, there we go, look, issue 2. God, that was a while ago. So if you haven't already got that, folks, well worth a read, that piece. So, if you're making a saving, I can't remember who I've had this chat with. I think it was literally today, but I think you've got to look at the excesses in your system, because, all I say is one of my dealers, he was on about the amount of marine tank closures he's been having. Now that I can get, because I don't sort of see an efficient way you can run a marine tank because of the equipment that's truly needed to do it properly. With a pond, however, a really basic pond system that works well. So I'm going to refer to, let's go with one of my 3,500 gallon ponds, because it's quite a big pond. So that's on the basic level, that's running on an Aquamax Eco 8000 or 8500 as the main system pump. There's a 55 watt UV, an AirTech 150 and an AirTech 130. That's one driving the pond, one driving the fluid bed. Now, yeah, I don't know the running cost of all of them, but I know it's not super excessive, you know. And to be fair, could I get away possibly in that scenario with a hobbyist pond that's not under the pressure? You might get away with the additional air pump even that's on the pond and just go with what's driving the fluid bed. So if you look at the crux of a real basic system that can perform really well, I personally don't think the running costs are all that bad. We're not talking heavy watts if you buy the right equipment. If you get the wrong equipment, of course, you know, you can have a pump there that could be running at 2 or 3 times the wattage. So, yeah, really, I think you've just got to look at the excesses outside. So we've spoke about showers today. Is that something you actually need? No, unless it's your main filter. If it's just an additional filter, do you really need it? Is that something you can turn off? Are you running another pump through a skimmer that's not necessarily essential? Can you turn that off? Obviously, there's basic levels that you need. So that main system pump, your air pump, your UV, you absolutely need. Now, I think it's just about anything outside that, in my opinion, is probably not completely essential to get rid of. So, yeah, while you're giving your view on that, Chris, I'm just going to try and get the details of all that equipment I've spoke of, just to tally the wattage up.
Yeah. For me, there's a few savings to be made. UV lights. If your pond's clear, there's no harm in turning that UV light off. Use it as you need to use it. If it's 110 watt UV, there's 110 watts there that can be turned off, certainly in the winter. And maybe at times in the summer as well. Verified pumps can make a massive difference. So when we changed all our pumps over to Veri pumps, we noticed quite a remarkable saving in electric costs, running costs. The beauty of the Veri pump is if you need 10,000 litres an hour and you run a 20,000 litre Veri pump, then at 50% it'll be more efficient than running a 10,000 at 100%. So if you're changing the pumps over, look for a Veri pump and don't run them flat out, knock them back a little bit. For me, it's all that turnover, so I'm happy to turn my ponds over once every 2 hours. Don't need fantastic.
That's a good one, yeah. So it's a big one on the pump there, isn't it? And getting that right pump.
It definitely is. And, you know, there's times when, like in the summer where you need to run it faster. In the winter, you flow rates. In my pond there, I'll knock it back, turn it over once every 4 or 5 hours. And it's quite a significant saving in running costs. Air pumps, just going back to the pumps, have a look. It'll say on the pump, it'll give you a wattage of how much. And some of the old, they're quite shocking.
Yeah. Right, so I've just had a quick look. So the main water pump is running at 80 watts power consumption. I mean, it's minuscule. So that's keeping the filter and everything running there. We've obviously got 55 watt UV. The air pumps, the AirTech 130, quoted on EA's website at 88 watts, and then 106 for the bigger air pump that's driving the fluid bed. So I mean, 329 watts there for a 3,500 gallon pond. You know, if I pull that back to the other systems, the 1,200 gallon ones, I'm running just a single pump there. It's a small one, smaller Aquamax Eco on those, and then just the one air pump. So in that instance, I'd be eliminating the 106 watts from that slightly smaller UV. So that then ponds are probably running for about 200 watts all in all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's more being wasted in households on silly things than 200 watts to run a pond and all the enjoyment that comes from it, to be honest.
Yeah. The things that you can't do without is the oxygen and the water. You know,
that even at that, I think they'll struggle to get a system running for less than maybe 200 watts.
Yeah.
But I think that's a sort of negligible amount, really. So yeah, just really look at your equipment. I know it can be tough because, you know, the most efficient equipment does tend to be the more expensive. But if you've got a really old pump that's just not energy efficient, You know, it probably won't take long. I'm not that good at doing all the breakdowns and costs, but you probably would find very easily that if you can manage to buy a better, more efficient new pump, you're definitely going to save a lot. And then with electricity as it is, those savings are going to come around a lot quicker now. So yeah, I can't really add any more to that. There isn't a basic level of essential equipment, but I think you can be running a decent enough system for a couple of 100 watts there, and keep your fish perfectly well.
I think when we go back to the air pumps earlier, you know, it shows in the power of the air pumps and the efficiency of the air pumps. You've got to buy a good quality air pump. If cheap alternatives just aren't going to do it, you're going to end up buying twice.
Absolutely. Right, so I'm going to browse through, see what else we've got to go through. What's your views on feeding little and often, hourly during the day versus few larger feeds? This to me really comes more down to the requirements you're looking to do, the water temperature at, and what you can realistically do at that now. There's absolutely no harm in feeding hourly, little and often, or in the bigger hits. Ultimately, your governing factors is going to be your filter's ability to process the waste, no matter what the level is. You know, it's how much you feed in per day that's going to matter overall. How you feed it will come more down to balancing the fish's energy in order to get the sort of maximum growth. So I choose Snapchat at 24-25C. I generally choose between 2 and 3 hours, depending on the age of the fish. The bigger fish, I'll tend to swing more towards the 3 hours. Toe side, this side, definitely on the 2 hours. Without a doubt, it just seems to give a nice period of sort of digestion time in between, a little bit of recovery, energy as well. You've got to remember how much energy they're using when they actually eat, because they've got to digest it. So there's a lot of oxygen consumed in that process as well, which is really important to consider. So if you're dropping it in constantly, that's a lot of energy just being consumed all the time digesting food. Whereas giving them some window allows that to recover. And I actually see it when I watch. I can tell throughout the day roughly where they are at the feeding cycle without knowing the time, because shortly after the feed you see them go, you know, relatively slow and a lot more sluggish, which is normal. And I know at that point they're obviously digesting what they've just eaten, and that slowly winds through. And about 15 to 20 minutes or up to half an hour before the next 2 hour feed comes in, energy levels just go through the roof. They're all active, swirling, looking for that next feed again. And then it comes and the process just repeats from there, to be honest with you. So yeah, I probably wouldn't choose every hour. And I like feeding structured because that's important for managing it for maximum growth. But yeah, I would choose to give them a window. And as they move down, I mean, to be honest with you, if I sort of hit 20, 22 degrees even, I'm looking to feed much less. So every 3 to 4 hours on average there, from between 18 and even 22 degrees. And then, you know, below 18, dropping off even more than that, to be honest. So yeah, I hope that answers that one. Large feeds aren't a problem. I've actually done a program some years back, because it was against some data Jasper from EA had given me. And I was trying to get a full day's feed actually fed over 2 feeds a day. And it was just so difficult to do with the feeding quantities. So I just couldn't physically get the amount of food down and in the window that was required. So my view is it's definitely one spreading out, but not spreading out too much. So there we go. Interesting one with feeding, Chris, isn't it? There's so many variables, different thoughts, opinions, what works. I think a lot of that comes down to, you know, you learn from your own experience.
That's it. Everybody's ponds are different. Everybody's circumstances are different. I mean, some people they can only feed in the morning and on an evening. You know, busy people. It shouldn't prevent them from having a pond for sure. But it's getting to know your own fish and what they need and doing what's right for them. So I
always when I talk about this, I'm always just coming at it from a growth and raising angle, because that is obviously where I'm obsessed with. But you've just got that general pond. To be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with a couple of decent feeds a day. It just depends where you're at. Because I always just have to remind everybody watching, you know, when you're doing the raising like I'm raising, it comes with risk. You have to be monitoring and gauging stuff on a completely different level, and not advisable for a lot of people.
Well, what I tend to tell people is when they've got the feed rate set, put it in a bowl. Certainly, if you've got multiple people feeding in the household, and that's food for the day then. So once they've had it, and then you just got to be careful you don't overfeed, because it can cause as many.
It happens too easy, Chris. When you don't know, you see, I'm always in control of the feeding generally because I'm using automatic feeders. Yeah, and they're set, but it's very easy. Certainly this time of year when pond temperatures still aren't amazing, you filter and everything has to adapt to the circumstances, and it can be very easy on these sunny days, to get carried away, double your feeding from the previous day or two, and then again another day or so later, before you know it, you've got an ammonia spike or your nitrites up.
And you usually see it a week after on social media when you've had some good weather. The ammonia spikes, the nitrite spikes, and the problems setting in from the fish being trapped. So,
it's good fun. It's a fun old game. This koi keeping lark.
Yeah.
Well, let's just dive into the comments and see what new we've had come through. That's one while we're on food, actually. What size pellets do you prefer to use? 2 pellets for me. I don't like to use anything too large. For fish, probably up to 25, sometimes up to 30 centimeters. I still like to use a small pellet, and that's being small in Saki Akari terms is I think 2 to 2.5 mil. A lot of other sort of European manufacturers tend to be 3 mil at that size. So, and then from there, I like to use the medium pellet, which again, Ikari terms is 5 to 5.5 mil. And then 6 mil for most of the manufacturers, and I wouldn't choose to use anything other than that. Got to remember, koi are, yes, they're chewing food to some extent, breaking it down, but if we can help doing part of that process by creating more surface area, that's just something you can control with pellet size. 100 grams of a small pellet is a different surface area to 100 grams of a medium pellet. So certainly with them smaller fish, we can really help them out by getting the correct size pellet there. So that'd be me on that one.
Yeah, we use Takazumi in the shop. It's all the same size pellet, so it's all one size pellet throughout the different varieties of food. So and it's a small to medium pellet, we'll call it. So not a big pellet. The
small pellet stuff was interesting, and I know this is obviously led by not a lot of people make a good small pellet across their whole ranges. And I think this has probably come from demand, because demand dictates everything typically, and a lack of understanding. I've seen it for years. People were picking, without knowing, coming in and just picking up the biggest size pellet off the shelves that they could get. You sort of just like, well, what size fish are you actually feeding here? And small pellet just wasn't a great demand, as with colour food, to be honest with you. So my sort of retail days, they were the two. Small pellet you struggled to sell unless you actually pointed it out and advised. And colour food was another, because there was some kind of stigma around colour food that you were sort of doing something naughty by using it. Both of which I hope I've dispelled over some time here, that, colour food's really essential if you wanted to bring, a koi's natural colour to its best. And pellet size is really essential if you want to maximise growth and give them the best chance.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one. Speaking of food, it really was. I was just laughing earlier. It's like setting fire to money. I opened two sacks of sake, 30 kilos, chucked it in a bowl, mixed it up. I think it only filled about 6 feet. It didn't actually even fill them. I just spread them out like, oh God.
Yeah, it doesn't go far, does it? Yeah.
Go and do it same again tomorrow, and I'll just about be on top of it.
Yeah, this time,
savage the amount.
So it just seems to be opening bag after bag after bag. It's the same now in the shop. It's like, where's that gone? The vetting. So.
It really is, but look, that's one thing I never think, because I just see what's happening to the fish in front of me, and yeah, never worry about that one too much. So I just got an interesting one here. Young koi with large eyes, any bearing on future size of the fish? No, not for me. There are other elements of the body that might be. Interesting part here, young fish with large eyes. What can sometimes happen with, and you see this in small nissai, because some people raising small nissai from a koi show perspective really isn't an art form, because you think it's just, leaving them there to grow small. It's quite hard to hold the fish back, keep everything there, especially managing the body, because there are some issues that develop with these, because sometimes you can get the fins and the eyes growing disproportionate to the rest of the body. So you're slowing the growth down on the body where you can't control the fins and the eyes. And that's why somehow I can sometimes use that as a gauge to know an elements of the body that sometimes a fish is actually, might be being sold as tosai, for example, but actually a small nissai is a real strong giveaway when you can learn to tell the subtle differences. But no, the eyes aren't something I'm looking at to predict future growth, but can be a giveaway in that instance. Like I say, because they will grow disproportionately to the rest of the body. And that is something that ties in. You've probably seen some small nissai, Chris, that can get them really big wings at times, looking like that, and they're hard. It's where, to be honest with you, when you're raising small nissai, male fish are far much better than females, because you can be raising something really prominent that's looking strong, and all of a sudden it matures with a bit of egg, and on a small body it just absolutely destroys it.
Yeah, definitely.
They're a fascinating art form to get right. So I think that's probably a misconception there, that it's just don't let it grow. Well, you try holding back a koi that wants to grow. It's really tough. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, so
really tough. Good question, that.
I'm just trying to think with the large eyes. I'm trying to think back to the fish that we've had large.
Is it you won't know? It's just one of them. It's like irregularities in scale lines, and I hope Kev's watching this tonight, just to give him some more reviews. But eyes are just one. It's one of the things when you refine your own eyes towards seeing it, you can spot it. Because I over the years in Japan, there's been a couple of instances where breeders have gone to me, "Oh, these are jumbo tosai," and I've, with the experience I've got, looked at them and called them out on it, because I know full well it's not. I'm talking jumbo tosai, where there's a percentage that look like mature females underneath, and you do clearly see in a lot of them the eyes looking disproportionately bigger than they should really. So it's good question. Obviously, the bit that was actually asked, no, not an indicator for growth, but also quite useful for other things there to spot. So, right, let's have a look. Probably last one or two here, Chris. Oh, here we go. Question for Chris. You mentioned Takazumi. Would you recommend that brand? I know Ricky swears by Sakiko, the price is a big thing between the two. Yeah. With that one, Chris.
We use them both. We use Sakikari, certainly when we're growing out koi. We've got a grow out just starting now, and that's going to be used. Takazumi high growth is going to be used for that one. In the shop, Takazumi, fantastic brand of food. We've never looked back since we first started using it, and we noticed within days that there was less waste sitting in the bottom drains. Many of you will see in our fish and how they keep in the shop despite there's no natural light. Even we keep the colours well, the skin stays well. The fish don't need anything else than that food that we're giving them. So the water remains good. It's a fantastic food. I think interestingly with feed, a lot of Takazumi is its own brand. It's not repackaged for anybody else.
Yeah.
A lot of brands are repackaged, and it's the same brand just with a different name. We've got feed.
It's their own unique formula that they developed.
Yeah, and
that's what you're getting at there.
Yeah, and the Yugen Yoss, who we know so well now, Yoss was the people who helped develop that food, which is the immune boost food. So we can take some some comfort in the fact that Yoss and all his knowledge of immune systems, everything in the fish, has helped develop that food.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd recommend it all the way.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
I do get it. I'm actually with you on the Takazumi one, Chris. There's not many out there that I would even mention. But to be fair, it's one I've used in the past. It is a solid food.
Yeah.
Not for me, obviously not on the level of Sake Koi, but Terry's right as he points out in his question. There's a clear price difference, and I think looking out there on the market, there's not loads of sort of own formula foods. A lot of it is the same stuff packaged up, like you say. I think it's wise to point that out. But this is their own formula. They had developed, they've worked on. Yoss has worked extensively across the whole thing, and it's a good food. Food.
It's excellent. It's we've never looked back, and I can't foresee me wanting to try anything else for what we use.
Yeah,
but having said that, in the fish house growing fish on Sake Koi, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Right, last one. This is quite an interesting one I've seen pop up. Mr. Koi 13. How much money would you need to part with to purchase a Nissan in Japan that would be a potential All Japan entry? Very multi-layered question, that one. What variety are you looking to compete in? It's probably the biggest thing there, because that's going to really affect where you go with your budget, to be honest with you. Crikey. This is the interesting one with this, because it's really knowing the fish and trying to find. It's not always necessarily the most expensive fish that wins. You could go to Sakai and spend a fortune on something for a long way, but it could just be that one fish sat at another breeder's somewhere else that's not carrying all the same expectations, price tags, brand taxes, whatever you want to call it, that can sneak in and perform really well. That said, obviously the All Japan is a serious level, and as you move up them size classes, it's a hell of a division to compete in. If you're getting into the realms of Go Sankey, this side at that level, I think you're going to be looking at £1 million at the very least to be buying something you know is going to stand any chance of sort of competing. Just off the top of my head, as you're bearing around to get access to something like that from the right place, you're probably getting in that. You might be able to nick something away between sort of £500,000 and £1 million. So £1 million is around £7,000 for those who aren't quite sure of the conversion. For Go Sankey, it's obviously the toughest of all. There's some serious competition. And are we talking about here something that could win a third prize, or something that's going to win on a first prize, a Kakubio, or even go beyond that, because they're the levels that you're working through. But it could be at them price levels, I really hate when you talk about this, because £500,000 at sort of £3,500 and £1 million, it's a lot of money. But just in the bigger picture of the koi world, the money people are spending on them, it really is a drop in the ocean. So it's really being savvy, I think, refining your eye. You can nick fish for less and bargains if you're in the right places and you're trusting your instincts on the fish. It's all about giving it a shot. It's not that in order to take part, you haven't got to shed loads of money. You can take part at lower levels, build it up, refine your eye, and learn to spot them bargains that are out there that can possibly compete. But if you're really serious about going straight in and at this high level, then I think the minimum you're going to be playing with is in that £500,000 to £1 million mark, and beyond, really. And again, that's going to be variety specific as well. Some of the variety classes you can get away with far less, but it's a serious level to get at. And there's only certain price points as well breeders are going to entertain entering because of the work, backspace availability. You've got to remember in this whole process, breeders want their fish to win these awards because of what it does for their business and their stature and their standing in what they're doing. So if there's only X amount of space, they want the very best fish to be entered into that they know stand a chance. The knock-on effect is them fish then and the price tags they're carrying, if they're even available at that point. So tough one, but that's not to say, like I say, most levels, the entry level Chris sort of went in this year with the All Japan was not scary money for a toe side. more than affordable for a lot of koi keepers, and it was a third prize it back, weren't it?
Yeah, it came third. All Japan Koi Show, which
I say that I take them because this is the best level in the world you're talking about here, and to get a third prize at that level, it's not like the categories are generally struggling to make up numbers. Most of the categories have got plenty of entries and entries of quality. So,
and then of course we've got the other one as well, slightly more expensive, but hopefully, it'll do well.
This is it. Yeah. It's taking the risks, taking the chances on some smaller fish and possibly raising them as well. It really depends on where you're at with your budget. In my opinion, there's loads of ways of doing it to work with the budget that you've got to get involved in that show scene in Japan. It's just being realistic with what budget you've got and finding the best way of tackling it from there, to be honest.
I think the best way is to send us the budget, give us the budget, and then you can make the compromise based on the budget. Budget.
I see that quite a lot. It's quite an interesting thing, and it's the culture of that started because I think some people are a bit reluctant to come forward with what they're willing to spend through fear of potentially being ripped off or something like that. And I was first sort of introduced to this in Japan. So you'll ask a breeder, have you got this, have you got that, blah, 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 whatever it is, and then they'll come back and go, what's your budget? And it's these sort of thing. Why? As it explained to me, it makes perfect sense. And it's something I'm very strict with when I have clients asking me for fish these days. Because when you say, I want something high quality, I mean, my God, I could walk into Dainichi tomorrow, stick something in a bowl that's high quality that's going to cost you 30 grand. If that's not what you was thinking and your budget was £1,000, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what's gone and happened there is I've gone and bothered Shigeru of Dainichi, bowled up a very expensive fish that could have been damaged in that whole process, to take a video to send it when we was absolutely miles apart on expectations. So it's always, and you'll probably know yourself, I've been through it with you, Chris, what's the budget, what are we playing with? So we can work from that, because again, nobody especially wants to be netting up high class koi if there's really no intention or hitting the spot of being purchased. It's just a spot for everything. But when we know, it's like I say, it can be something that can be worked on, and again, advice can be given as well, just to manage expectations. And to make compromises. Make decisions where you can save a bit, but you're going to do anything's possible. Most things are achievable, but ultimately there could possibly be compromises along the way. You just got to work through in order to find, to get the absolute best amount of fish for the budget. Which is something I enjoy doing. It's not just about selling expensive stuff. I love helping people get the most for the money, but it's just about learning what compromises you need to make, really. We're the same. I mean, I wake up and I often think about them two fish off in Japan, and it puts a smile on my face. They're there and they're doing what they're doing. So I'm just going to use these last moments. You can stay on, Chris, because this is something that will no doubt involve you guys at Elite as well. So I've just managed to wrap up today, quite exciting, my mud pond at NND in Japan. So I've got 40 koi gone in there for the year, a stunning batch of tosai, which I'm now working on just putting the event details together, because all 40 of these koi are going to be offered up for sale at a fixed price. It's going to include all the fees and at a price that is going to be really accessible for a lot of people, and I mean a lot. And this is a great opportunity just to enjoy what Chris has just spoke about there, having a fish in a Japanese mud pond for the summer. I'm planning on, so we've basically got all the video. Fujo at NND's been doing some great content showing the fish being released and all the rest of it. I'm going to be out there, I'm hoping towards the end of June, to have a catch up and obviously see how those fish are doing. And then ultimately in October, be there to actually harvest the pond, see the results, and then get them fish ready to be shipped home. So this is going to be an amazing opportunity for a lot of people. And just to let you know, it's coming. You've just got to work through all the stuff, but get yourselves ready for it, because it's a pretty exciting one. And then last plug,
Yeah.
Koi Talk magazine. We've got a code again if Steve just wants to whack it up on the screen. If you're not a subscriber yet, get the code banged in, get your first edition completely free, and please just support the venture. Going incredibly well. Some of our plans are starting to come together at the minute, and be great to get as many people on board as we can. So thanks all for your time. Thank you for your time again, Chris, getting back how you have done to fill that space. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And good one again. And enjoyed it. Hopefully everyone else did.
Yeah. And if anybody's about Saturday morning, call in and see us for bacon butty.
There we go. Happy days. I've still never actually managed to get there on time for one at Bacon Butties, have I?
I don't think I've managed to get bacon butty yet.
No. Brilliant. Anyway, it'll be a good one, and everybody else enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully a few more days of sunshine. We'll be back next week. Look forward to it. Got a bit of a twist next week as well, I think, coming if all goes well. So nice different format we'll look forward to. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.